Tonight on 24, America says it's satisfied with the progress of attacks against the Islamic Republic.
They are trying to hold the world hostage. They are attacking their neighbors. They are attacking neighboring countries, their energy infrastructure, their civilian population. They're attacking...
Marco Rubio says with the end of America's mission in Iran, the world will become a safer place. Military and security centers in various parts of Iran are under heavy aerial bombardment. Israel says the attacks continue to weaken the Islamic Republic's missile and drone capabilities. And the U.S. president's support for the protesting players of Iran's women's national football team. Trump, after speaking with the Australian Prime Minister, said 5 people have been protected and the rest are on their way.
From the Iran International Studio, this is 24 with Fardad Farahzad.
Hello and good evening to Iran International viewers in Iran and worldwide. An hour ago, Donald Trump called the selection of Mojtaba Khamenei as the Islamic Republic's new leader a big mistake. Meanwhile, the U.S. Secretary of State says the U.S. military is successfully carrying out operations in Iran. According to Marco Rubio, with each passing day of this operation, the Islamic Republic has fewer missiles and launchers, and its navy is being destroyed. According to Rubio, when this U.S. mission in Iran comes to an end, the world will become a safer and better place.
I want to open, first of all, just by stating the obvious.
I want to remind you that America is currently engaged in an operation that is targeting one of the world's biggest #1 supporters of terrorism and hostage-taking. And I want us all to pause for a moment, to be silent, to express both solidarity and condolences to the 7 Americans who lost their lives in the early hours of this operation. Very brave Americans. And you saw that 6 of them, their bodies were returned to the country with ceremony and dignity this past weekend. And we are all grateful and indebted for their service and courage, and we express our solidarity with their families in this very difficult moment. The families of these incredible heroes. And epic and heroic events are constantly happening. Sometimes they don't get reported in the media, but they do have an impact.
Our correspondent, Samira Garai from the U.S. State Department has joined us. Samira, it's clear that despite the Islamic Republic's efforts to drag this war into the region, to set the region ablaze, the United States, at least for now, still believes that the operation is progressing successfully.
That's right. The United States assessment is that at the end of what they are doing now, at the end of this operation, the world and the United States will be a better and safer place, meaning that their goals will be achieved, meaning that what they have in mind will be implemented and will come to fruition. Today, March 9th, is the anniversary of Mark Lawson's abduction in Iran, and the United States has been commemorating this day for several years now. Former hostages, Americans who were held captive around the world, whether by the Taliban or in Venezuela or in Russia or in Iran, Jason Rezaian was also at the ceremony today. It invites those who were taken hostage in those places to speak about this matter. This year, however, the atmosphere was very much overshadowed by the discussion of the Islamic Republic and the war. A day or two before the war began, the State Department announced that the recent decision designating the Islamic Republic as a state sponsor of unjust detentions represents a profoundly important development in international relations. Crucially, this formal classification provided new legal tools to the United States government, empowering officials to take significantly tougher actions against the regime. Now, this March 9th marks a historic precedent, as it is the first time that the Islamic Republic is being formally discussed with that specific designation and legal determination right in the middle of an ongoing war. Highlighting the gravity of the situation, Mr. Rubio states that these leaders effectively operate as a dangerous terrorist group that unfortunately possesses the powerful tools of a state in their hands, meaning drones and missiles are tools that a state can utilize. But these guys, like a terrorist group, have fallen upon the world. He says, just look right now how they've taken the countries of the world hostage, how they've taken the countries of the region hostage. And his talks were very much focused on the Islamic Republic. And he says, we're holding a ceremony today that the Islamic Republic is directly involved in. But in the talks he gave, he also outlined the United States goals for the war we're waging. It is a war, he said, that the brave daughters and sons of the United States are deeply involved in. Even though the news cameras are currently focused on them, they are carrying out major, highly important operations. He clearly described their goals for the specific operation like this. Let's go listen together.
The goals of this vital mission are very clear, and we need to remind the American people, exactly why this, the greatest army in world history, has entered this crucial operation. Our absolute goal is to completely destroy this regime's capability to fire missiles, both by systematically destroying their launchers, dismantling the factories that produce missiles, and decisively destroying their navy. We've all seen so far what a severe threat this religious regime has posed to the region and the broader world. They've essentially taken the whole world hostage. They're attacking their innocent neighbors. They mercilessly target basic infrastructure, their energy infrastructure, and innocent citizens. Civilian airports, diplomatic embassies. Make no mistake, this is a dangerous terrorist regime, and it is actively committing horrific terrorist acts. We see them using their own weapons, their own missiles, and lethal one-way drones to maliciously hit their neighbors. The explicit goal of our mission is to completely destroy their capability to do these terrible things every single day with very strong force and incredibly high precision. We are relentlessly pursuing this operation. Our dedicated uniformed men and women bravely carry out these vital operations. Many cameras aren't showing their activities, unlike other images you've seen from the capitals of neighboring countries. But I assure you that our armed forces are getting the job done, and with each passing day, this regime has fewer missiles, fewer launchers, its factories are destroyed, and its navy has been decimated. And when this mission comes to an end, the world will be a safer place.
The United States is actively looking to militarily weaken the Islamic Republic. Right now, in the recent remarks by the U.S. Secretary of State, we were hearing extensive discussions about naval forces, advanced missile capabilities, and ongoing nuclear capabilities. Specifically, the focus on missile capabilities, whether involving domestic missile production, mobile launchers, or expansive arsenals, is undeniable. These instances are repeatedly showing up in the talks of both the Secretary of War and the Secretary of State. But as for where we are ultimately headed with the overall war, or exactly when this escalating conflict is going to end, there is still nothing clear, neither in official government statements nor in what has been reported in the media. Mr. Trump had an interview with NBC today, and they're asking him about oil, like whether they want to seize oil, similar to what they did in Venezuela. He says it's still too early for that talk. It's clear there's a plan and a clear strategy in terms of time frame and all those details. But the discussion of oil or energy issues still doesn't fit into that time frame, and we don't have more details. In analyses, you really can't study these kinds of things either. Tomorrow morning, the Pentagon is scheduled to have a press conference about Operation Epic Fury, so maybe more details will be released there. Also, this afternoon, our time here in the eastern U.S., Mr. Trump is going to hold a press conference. The oil issue, the rise in oil prices today. It's the first day of the week here, and the oil price increase, which was unprecedented since 2022, has been widely reflected in the media. It's been shocking. The stock market, all of this is causing Mr. Trump to want to come speak at his press conference. And we'll have to see what the time frame they have in mind is, especially since Mr. Trump is saying it's still too early to talk about oil, how that will play out. So about the leadership, Mr. Trump also made a quick comment about Mojtaba Khamenei, and he says they made a mistake. I don't think it'll last very long, and they made a big mistake. Mr. Trump said these three sentences.
Thank you, my colleague Samira Garai from the U.S. State Department. In another part of his remarks today, Marco Rubio said that when it comes to organized hostage-taking globally, no group or government has been as culpable or had as bad a record as the Islamic Republic in this area, and also on the issue of terrorism, and Washington just isn't going to tolerate this anymore.
Countries and terrorist groups and terrorist regimes like the Iranian regime should clearly know what severe consequences are coming their way if they do something like that. It is simply unacceptable to use innocent people as political bargaining chips. That's exactly why we've designated the new title of state sponsors of kidnapping. We established the specific tool so we can effectively apply this title to those who commit such horrific crimes, ensuring the full weight of international consequences fall directly on them. That's why I think the very first country that this title was applied to was, well, this religious terrorist regime in Iran. Because frankly, when the topic of hostage-taking comes up today, there's just been no bigger, more persistent offender than the religious regime in Tehran, Iran. They are the worst offenders, both in terms of terrorism and in terms of hostage-taking, from the very first days of them coming to power. So they are the first country and government that we've listed as state perpetrators of hostage-taking. They started with our embassy right from the beginning, and now our message is clear. America will not tolerate hostage diplomacy. We will always and still hold this regime accountable.
Ali Reza Namwar Hagiki, a political analyst from Toronto, has joined us. Mr. Namwar Hagiki, so while the Islamic Republic has introduced its third leader, all the things we're hearing from the Americans and Israelis, it's clear they have no intention of easing up on the pressure. And it seems they just don't have any other choice. They're forced to go all the way and overthrow the Islamic Republic however they can.
Yes, hello to you, dear Mr. Farahzad, and to the viewers and listeners of Iran International Television. Well, as was said, you see, from the beginning, Mr. Trump didn't really have a clear strategy, meaning like sometimes they talk about nuclear stuff, sometimes they talk about missile stuff, they talk about incidents. Today, Mr. Rubio put nuclear aside and only talked about missiles and the Navy. This stems from the confusion in interactions. And secondly, some things that weren't predicted, well, they happened. First, their underlying assumption was that initiating a targeted attack, most likely culminating in the death of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, would trigger a rapid and complete collapse of the Iranian political system. Well, as we have clearly seen, that scenario simply did not happen. The second major miscalculation was regarding regional stability. They genuinely did not think that Iran possessed the capability or willingness to aggressively attack neighboring countries in the region at such an unprecedented level, although it is worth noting that before all these events, Mr. Iravani, they had explicitly warned the United Nations about this growing geopolitical crisis in a detailed memo. Mr. Khamenei had also ominously said that, we will regionalize the war. It seems they simply hadn't made the necessary strategic predictions for this exact outcome either. Thirdly,
Why? Why do you say that, Mr. Namwar Hagigi? Excuse me for interrupting you. Mr. Namwar Hagigi, I just want to ask you, why do you say that? Because we remember that long before the war even started, that was actually one of the reasons for the delay, it seems. They brought a lot of THAAD and Patriot defense systems to the region. And even now, it's these very defenses that are, largely saving these Persian Gulf countries from the Islamic Republic's fire. So they had guessed it to some extent.
They had guessed it, but I myself didn't think, for example, that they would ever attack a place like Qatar, because a united Qatar essentially means that Iran's money is in Qatar's hands. I also didn't think about them targeting Dubai and the UAE, because the UAE serves as their main trade bottleneck, I mean, if the UAE decides to confront them in the commercial sector, Iran will really face a fundamental economic crisis. I expected it with Bahrain or even Kuwait, but I didn't think they'd do this with these two countries because of the severe risks involved.
Well, don't you think all of this makes the situation irreversible?
Yes, why? Iran has entered a death game, but in a death game, when you go into it, as I said before, I defined what happens in a death game. This makes the situation irreversible. But, it's not clear how far America and Israel want to continue this process. Look, the issue is that this only requires a ground force that can change the regime. I mean, you either have to deploy forces on the ground, or there need to be forces inside Iran that are ready to take over the political institutions. Otherwise, look at the reality. Right now, Iran is the only country whose entire network of military and security outposts has been repeatedly hit, yet it is still standing and continuing its operations. Because of this, the only definitive way to stop them is that they have to deploy ground forces. It is not clear, however, if Mr. Trump would actually want to escalate his level of engagement this much. I think their current strategic idea is that they are going to hit the missile sites as thoroughly as they can with B-52s or B-2s, as much as they possibly can, exactly like Mr. Ruby said, and then, following those strikes, they might go on to hit the broader structures too, and then just leave it. Naturally, at that point, that country will inevitably face deep fundamental problems, including neighbors who are now entrenched enemies. I mean, Iran's relationship with Arab countries won't be easily repaired anymore, in my opinion, because once you actually attack them, they'll always harbor lingering fear and feel like you can easily do it a second time. And the third crucial point is that the people, who are already deeply unhappy because of the harsh repressions of the day-month protests, will suffer even more. Then there are compounding economic problems too. Finally, we see growing challenges within the power bloc too, which, partly because of. After Mojtaba Khamenei's appointment, it's been quiet for now, but after these conflicts, it'll come up. از این درگیری‌ها میاد بالا because all of these, they all have legal problems and operational problems too. All of this creates a crisis for them. Now, they might do this to give themselves a breather, do an assessment, and then solve this issue again. I also said last time, after the 12-day war, on your show too, look, you either have to resolve this crisis with a lasting agreement, which would mean Iran has to give fundamental concessions, and I highly doubt Mojtaba Khamenei would be willing to make such a turn, or you need to find a new capability to change the balance of power, and that kind of possibility doesn't exist right now either. Otherwise, even if it ends temporarily, it'll just repeat itself until someone backs down at some point, and the outlook is very dark in this regard.
You mentioned the ground forces, Mr. Nabar Haqiqi. Even right now, Americans are bringing up whispers of it. But one point that might be important is that if you remember, early in the war, the American president told protesters, told the people of Iran, for now, stay in your homes. At the appointed time, we will tell you to come out and take your institutions. Just a few minutes ago, the Israeli army announced that since the start of the attacks, they've killed 1,900 military personnel and government commanders in Iran. It seems like their numbers are also going up. Israelis, Americans have shown that they also have the political will to assassinate political officials, just as they killed Khamenei and Self, the leader of the Islamic Republic. Now, it's not unlikely that they might even kill his successor. Can't one imagine a situation where by reducing the Islamic Republic's missile and drone capabilities and striking more at not just military but also political commanders of the Islamic Republic, the government reaches a point where after that, people would to come out into the streets and take over the institutions?
Yes, they might genuinely want to, but usually, under severe bombing conditions, I strongly doubt society would actually come out to protest. Plus, the regime has actively tried to arm its staunch supporters, and yes, the situation could spiral towards a civil war, or it could become a failed state, but I doubt it. For example, in Yugoslavia too, people only came out into the streets a full year after the bombing. They didn't come out immediately. I highly doubt this regime change idea that Mr. Trump has will be realized so easily. Plus, look, the ongoing actions of Israel and America are illegal. The continuation of these illegal actions, well, it creates a profound problem. Then you can't even say anything about Russia and Ukraine either. Plus, Russia benefits the most from the continuation of the situation, both in terms of oil revenues and in terms of weakening Ukraine's defensive position, which is also part of it. And I think China and Russia might also want to support the new leadership in the new situation, because they were worried that a Western-leaning leadership would come to power in Iran. Now, well, their issue changes. Anyway, what they said, if they want to do it, it can definitely face a serious challenge because the system's active force isn't 1,900 people. They would have to incapacitate something like 300 to 400,000 people to then be able to, imagine that, at least. And I don't think America and Israel are in a position to do that. And then you can't, individually target all those people with advanced technology in such cases. So I think the exit strategy isn't that easy. As Mr. Brzezinski used to say about Russia, he said it's an exit from hell strategy. Whatever situation you take, it will definitely be tragic. Now, who will do this, who will win, depends on the conditions, the balance of power, and serious challenges. It's actually in limbo. They can hit all the regime's resources and capacities, confront the regime with fundamental challenges. But change requires the people of Iran to do it themselves. And usually, in situations like this, society, ordinary people are a bit scared, unless they have organization and structure, which they don't currently have. Yes, if they had organization and structure, what you're saying could be realized. But I'm sure, because if the regime can't, this is the key point, it won't be able to meet the needs. And now, if the issue isn't resolved even now, it will face a more fundamental crisis again in the near future.
Thank you. Ali Reza Nambor Haqiqi, Canadian political analyst. In Iran, the attacks by the US and Israel on the Islamic Republic's military and security facilities are continuing for the 10th day. In addition to IRGC bases in various cities, images have also been published showing IRGC Navy ships and vessels being targeted. According to reports received by Iran International, cities including Tehran, Karaj, Isfahan, Shiraz, Bushehr, and Bandar Abbas have been targeted since last night. Let's watch a part of these attacks together.
They hit Karaj. They just hit Karaj. They actually hit Karaj. Oh my god. Oh my god, no. Oh my god. Allahu Akbar.
Gulshar, Karaj, right now, shooting after the Israeli attack. Some houses, collapsed. An IRGC base. Oh, wow. Oh my god. Oh my god.
It is Monday, March 8th, and right now they have directly hit the aerospace facility.
My colleague, Nikki Mahjoub, has joined us from Italy. Nikki, we've seen some of the images that have reached us from Iran together. Give us a picture of what the situation is like on the ground right now.
Look, if we want to say how today went, we have to say in various cities, in Tehran, in Isfahan, in Ahwaz, in Konarak-Chabahar, in Bandar Abbas, in Zahedan, in Abhar Zanjan, there have been sounds of explosions. Various images have been recorded showing that either IRGC besieged security forces bases have been hit, or, for example, it's been said that the Quds city courthouse has been hit. There's news that Isfahan has been hit. The IRGC base in Gulshar Karaj in Shar-e-Ray has been hit. On the other hand, has been reported that the Fardad building, located on Sohravardi Street in Tehran, was targeted today. This facility is known as one of the primary buildings actively involved in the field of internet filtering. Furthermore, we have received images from several administrative complexes, the Montazeri camp, and the local municipality building in Shahryar. Additionally, there have been multiple coordinated attacks on drone bases, as well as IRGC and Basij operational bases, which served as locations for storing drones. These strikes occurred in Karaj, Nazarabad, Andisha, Shahryar, and also in Tehran. The point is, what the Israeli army announced in its statement a few hours ago, it said its attacks today were focused on the Islamic Republic's military capabilities and intensified hitting IRGC bases and IRGC drone bases. What can be seen in the reports? Well, because we know, right, they've now put some really serious restrictions on publishing news about events happening in cities, or cities that are, anyway, under these attacks. Many media outlets can no longer provide details due to the restrictions imposed on them. So, based on what's gradually being released, you could say these attacks are still happening pretty much the same way they did in previous days, though maybe, a bit less. At certain times, there were sounds of explosions, and at other times, like this afternoon, the volume of explosions was again higher. But what needs to be emphasized is that, well, for example, a growing number of homes, according to their owners, have completely broken windows, and that costs unexpected money to properly fix and rebuild anyway. People's only real concern, based on what they are actively saying, is that the essential facilities the Islamic Republic officials claim are abundantly available throughout the city, that supposed abundance is an absolute lie. Take gasoline. They simply cannot get gas like before. Officials abruptly reduced the standard 30
40 leaders, claiming it is now 15 leaders. But when people actually go to the local stations, they don't even have the option to get that promised 15 leaders. Or in some smaller cities or, different areas, due to, well, how much damage they've sustained, some necessities are going to be scarce tomorrow. And this is the situation people are in. But on the other hand, what's really, heartwarming for me in these difficult circumstances people are facing is the solidarity and support people have for each other. For example, some medical centers have come forward to provide services for the elderly or people who visit these centers due to anxiety, and they're not charging money. Different local groups have gathered and are giving financial aid to people who, anyway, are deeply in need in these difficult circumstances and definitely should be helped, or they go out and provide basic daily necessities for them. On the other hand, what's happened, and again, it really needs to be mentioned, is that people in their own cities have gathered in groups and are trying to, for example, create a safe opportunity if someone's home has been seriously damaged, or they simply can't have a roof over their head. It's the people who have come to each other's aid, not a government that killed its own people, caused war, and now has again abandoned the people, pursuing attacks and crimes it has committed throughout all these 40+ years.
Thank you. My colleague Nikki Manjoub from Italy. Israel's representative to the UN said an hour ago that Mojtaba Khamenei has radical ideas similar to the previous leader, and Israel will target anyone who promotes these radical ideas. According to Danny Danon, a change in Iran's leadership does not mean a change in Tehran's policies, and he stated that Israel will counter any threat to its security.
The new leader,
Unfortunately, this new leader signifies the same routine and a continuation of the previous command, the same ideology and the same approach. And anyone who pursues this ideology against us, we will target them. But it is the people of Iran who must choose their next leader. We will create the right conditions for them, but it is the people of Iran who must rise up and choose their leader.
Meanwhile, Israel's representative to the UN told my colleague Mariam Rahmati on the sidelines of the Commission on the Status of Women meetings at the organization that the situation and suffering of Iranian women under the rule of the Islamic Republic is an issue the international community must not forget and should focus on resolving.
I think this entire week
I think this entire week should have focused on the suffering and pain of Iranian women. That's why we decided to change our program. Women in Israel fought very hard and suffered a lot on October 7th, but we decided to focus our programs on the current situation. I think the entire session of the Commission on the Status of Women at the UN this week should focus on this issue. The Iranian government is not a member of this commission, but in my opinion, all countries should talk about this issue, that we must support the women of Iran and allow them to voice their protests.
And allow them to rise up.
Our reporter Mariam Rahmati herself has joined us from UN headquarters. Mariam, we just aired part of Danny Danon's conversation with you. It's clear that he doesn't see any difference between the new leader of the Islamic Republic and his father, Ali Khamenei.
That is exactly right, Fardad. The Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, speaking both last week and today in direct response to my specific question regarding Mojtaba Khamenei, stated unequivocally that he is just like his father and will definitely be targeted. Ambassador Danny Danon carefully explained that Israel firmly believes Mojtaba Khamenei would seamlessly continue the exact same hardline policies and hostile ideology as Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Because of this continuity, from Israel's strategic perspective, he clearly remains a significant threat to the country's overall security. Furthermore, Danon emphasized that in this critical regard, Israel and the US share closely aligned positions. This effectively means the United States also strongly believes that Mojtaba Khamenei will not be any fundamentally different from Ali Khamenei. And certainly, it has become abundantly evident that the next strategic target for both Israel and the United States will undoubtedly be Mojtaba Khamenei. Just an hour ago, Fox News also prominently reported, Fardad, that Donald Trump is profoundly unhappy with the selection of Mojtaba Khamenei as the new supreme leader of the Islamic Republic regime. Anyway, it seems quite apparent that Israel and the US are closely aligned in this specific goal. Based on what Danny Danon recently stated, it is entirely clear they want to decisively finish Mojtaba Khamenei's work, and consequently finish the regime's work altogether. According to their shared political vision, they simply do not want the suppressive regime to continue moving forward. Fardad, these crucial statements have come up just as a notable group of Iranian women were seen accompanying the Israeli ambassador right here. This week, the prominent Commission on the Status of Women is being held here at the UN headquarters in New York. Today features two sessions separate, highly significant events with Iranian women activists present. One important panel was already held, and another passionate discussion is currently underway. Understandably, Iranian women are generally angry about the ongoing situation. Both Iranian human rights defenders and dedicated women's rights activists remain deeply angry and frustrated. It is abundantly clear that the UN and the international community, generally speaking, haven't paid enough attention to Iranian women and to the severe suppression that the Islamic Republic has committed against them. Therefore, it is these brave Iranian women who have to come here to the global stage. At the UN, it is essential to participate in official events, engage in side events, and truly be the voice of women. This means representing both the brave women inside the country and Iranian women outside the country, who are tirelessly trying to bring this severe suppression by the Islamic Republic to the attention of international community members. They are speaking out about the harsh social restrictions that exist against Iranian women. They are sharing truths about the immense harm that the Islamic Republic has inflicted on Iranian women over the past decades, especially on the significant occasion of International Women's Day. It is really important here that this resilient voice is powerfully highlighted on the global stage. We know it was back in 2022, Fardad, that we covered right here how the Islamic Republic was officially expelled from the UN Commission on the Status of Women, an achievement made possible thanks to the courageous efforts of Iranian women. And now it is these exact same women who finally have the UN's full attention during this important session. They possess a crucial platform to show their true, unyielding voice and make it heard by members of the international community. To explore this deeply, I spoke with Rahalia Miri, one of the resilient victims of the widespread protests in Iran, who tragically lost her eye during the violent demonstrations. And today, she was here at the UN to meet with members of the international community and give a speech. Let's hear a part of my conversation with Rahalia.
We came to the UN today, and I'm on 2 panels alongside women from Iran and women from Israel. Well, because yesterday was Women's Day, and these programs are for women, and I'm supposed to represent the people of Iran and be the voice of Iranian women, to be the voice of the dear mothers who danced on their children's graves, and maybe the world didn't see them. And the world, in my opinion, closes its eyes to the women of Iran, to the struggle we're having, to the women who get shot in the eyes, who are raped, who are killed, and the world doesn't see them. And I've come here today to say that I am a witness. I came from Iran. I was in the woman, life, freedom revolution in Iran. I was shot in the streets of Iran. And I've come to say, look at us, hear our voice.
Farahzad, here at the UN, everywhere you walk and look, the pressing issue of Iran is being widely discussed. The UN Security Council is going to hold 2 critical sessions. One is an emergency session at the urgent request of Arab and regional countries. These neighboring nations want to hold a formal session concerning the Islamic Republic's recent attacks on their territories. They are asking the Council to quickly address this volatile situation and stop the Islamic Republic's ongoing military attacks. And another session will be about Hezbollah in Lebanon, which started its attacks against Israel after Israel and the United States attacked Islamic Republic positions. And the Security Council wants to address this issue as well. Anyway, we have a busy week ahead here at the Security Council and the UN headquarters regarding Iran. I'll get back to you.
Thank you, my colleague Mariam Ramati, reporting from the UN headquarters in New York. The U.S. president says he recently spoke with the Australian Prime Minister regarding the concerning situation of Iran's women's national football team. According to Donald Trump, 5 players from this team have already been granted official protection, and the remaining members are currently on their way to safety. Donald Trump had previously called forcing Iran's women's national football team to return to Iran a horrible human error, and had firmly stated that these individuals would most likely be killed after returning to Iran. According to information received by Iran International, 5 players from Iran's women's national football team requested asylum from Australia after leaving the team's camp. My colleague Raha Purbash has joined us from our studio in London. Raha, tell us more about what we know regarding their situation.
As you mentioned, 5 players from Iran's national football team quietly left their hotel in Gold Coast after the conclusion of their 3rd match. This morning, London time, we received information that they introduced themselves to the local police and officially requested asylum. But the crucial point I definitely need to mention here is that we've received credible information that 3 or 4 other players also desperately want to stay in Australia, but they have deep concerns about the safety of their families back home. It's been said that they have been directly threatened by officials. And this disturbing information isn't far-fetched at all, because just minutes ago, Amir Mehdi Alavi, the spokesperson for the Football Federation, said in a threatening tone during a TV interview that the entire Iranian national team delegation is going to return to Iran, and we are in contact with all of their families. This is kind of similar to a signal that Mojtaba Shabazi, a presenter on Channel 2, had previously given, saying that these players should be treated like wartime traitors and dealt with in that manner. This threat also came after the women of Iran's national football team refused to sing the Islamic Republic's anthem in the first match against South Korea and instead just accompanied it in silence with a smile. But after that, some information came out that threats had occurred against them and their families, and images were published showing that in the second and third matches, they were forced not only to sing the anthem, but also to give a military salute to the flag of the Islamic Republic. Recently, several images have been published showing Mohammed Rahman Salari positioned on the stands of the Gold Coast Stadium, actively trying to record this military salute and transmit it to Iran.
The Federation apparently issued a statement in response to Trump's remarks.
In direct response to Donald Trump's comments, the Football Federation issued a statement addressed to FIFA, firmly asserting that the sport of football should always remain strictly separate from politics. However, what was notably omitted from this official declaration was a starkly contrasting reality on the ground. Iran International has received exclusive information revealing that at a Gold Coast hotel where these players were staying, the environment was heavily restricted. The atmosphere was so intensely secured and tightly monitored that it actually forced the Australian Federal Police to physically remove several reporters and journalists from the premises. This drastic action was carried out at the direct request of the Federation's security team members. And what notably wasn't mentioned in that report is that actually these specific competitions are held directly under the supervision of the Asian Football Confederation, meaning they don't really have much to do with FIFA's overall jurisdiction. I think if we want to talk about the crucial background of what exactly happened that made this issue so deeply important for Western media outlets and human rights journalists, we must look at the immediate catalyst. The pivotal question that came up is that right after Mojtaba Shabazi made those controversial remarks on Channel 2, our team here at Iran International immediately subtitled his comments into English. We then sent them out to various international reporters. Almost instantly, from the very hour after Mojtaba Shabazi's alarming remarks were heard and seen, a wave of support started, and it was unbelievable for Western media that on live TV, on the Islamic Republic's live television, they could threaten athletes like this from afar, target their families, and target the players' lives themselves. And after that, even before this whole thing of them wanting to escape from the hotel or apply for asylum even happened, Australia's foreign minister had said in a statement that we have always been with the people's protests, with the people in Iran, and all the arrangements here are ready just because if anyone makes a request to stay in Australia, we will certainly welcome them, but we cannot force anyone to stay in Australia.
Thank you, my colleague Raha Porbaksh from our studio in London. The Turkish president, in response to the interception of a ballistic missile fired from Iran towards his country's territory, stated that despite sincere warnings, very wrong and provocative actions by Iran are still continuing. The Turkish presidency's communications director also, warning about Iran's threatening actions, said in a message on X that the ballistic missile fired from Iran and heading towards Turkey was timely intercepted and destroyed by NATO's air defense system in the Gaziantep region. Ankara stated that Tehran should not do anything that would create deep wounds in the hearts and minds of the Turkish nation.
In the context of today's incident, we once again remind them that this mistake should not be insisted and should not be repeated. We are reviewing the developments with NATO and our other allies, and we will take the necessary steps to strengthen our security and adopt additional measures. After the interception of the first missile, we warned Iranian officials. However, I must emphasize that despite our sincere and friendly warnings, very wrong and provocative steps are still being taken, which endanger Turkey's friendship.
Reza Talebi, a prominent journalist based in Berlin, is currently with us. Mr. Talebi, the Islamic Republic has recently attacked almost all countries bordering the Persian Gulf, as well as Azerbaijan. Regarding Turkey, especially given Ankara's diplomatic approach to this regional conflict from the very beginning, and even before it, the general assumption was that maybe they wouldn't bother Turkey anymore. But now we are increasingly seeing that even though nothing has actually hit yet, Iranian missiles are also heading towards Turkish airspace.
Yes, as you also mentioned, well, Iran's geopolitical relations with Turkey are distinctly different and inherently more complex. It was deeply felt that unlike having strictly maritime boundaries with the countries bordering the southern Persian Gulf, in the cases of Turkey and Azerbaijan, we shared direct land borders. Consequently, the inherent risks of any confrontations that might occur along the northwestern borders of the country carry far greater and more immediate security consequences for the Islamic Republic. Of course, well, Turkey ultimately acted in a controlled and measured manner. However, the truly strange thing today was that the Ministry of Defense actually started issuing official statements first, not the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which typically handles such delicate diplomatic matters. Although immediately following the recent cabinet meeting, President Erdogan also made a concerted effort to send the necessary diplomatic messages and warnings to the Islamic Republic. This tension builds on past incidents. Notably, the alarming missile movement launched from Hamadan, while initially thought to be targeting Cyprus, unpredictable waypoint changes suggested it was probably aiming for the strategic Ceyhan region or Incirlik Air Base. American forces successfully intercepted that specific threat using SM-3s, causing the neutralized munitions to fall in Dorchi al-Hatay. Underscoring this persistent regional hazard, today's rogue vessels similarly breached airspace and fell in the Gaziantep region. But the issue is that because missiles are targeted outside the atmosphere, well, the atmosphere isn't considered part of that country's airspace, and the SM-3 projectiles fired from the naval fleet, they operate at the lowest speed these missiles have outside the atmosphere, meaning, for example, beyond 200 to 300 kilometers, where they travel 7 kilometers. That's where it happens. And according to the statement from Turkey's Ministry of Defense, these munitions, or fragments of this missile, landed on Turkish soil. So it can't be said precisely either. Investigations need to be done to see if it entered Turkish airspace or not, because the issue is, the projectile that hit the missile was outside the atmosphere. In addition to that, you also mentioned Azerbaijan, the attacks that are happening in this manner. Although, perhaps from the apocalyptic logic of the Revolutionary Guard in the attacks on the countries bordering the Persian Gulf, which were initially disorganized, then became systematic and regular in line with energy targets. But in the Northwest, it makes no sense at all. I mean, I'm trying to find a logic for why the Islamic Republic of Iran is trying to carry out these attacks on Turkey, which is a NATO member, or on the Republic of Azerbaijan, which is on the border and has a lot of disagreements with them. So far, I haven't been able to find any justification other than that some forces within the Revolutionary Guard, much like the divisions seen within politics and military forces, are trying to, like Nero's command in Germany after World War II, set both the region and themselves on fire.
Thank you, Reza Talebi, journalist from Berlin. The president of the European Commission, referring to differing views on the US and Israeli military campaign against the Iranian regime, says no one should feel sorry for or shed tears for the Islamic Republic because it's a regime that has massacred the people of Iran. At the same time, the French president, during a visit to Cyprus, declared solidarity with the country and described an attack on it as an attack on Europe. During this trip, Emmanuel Macron promised to send 2 frigates to the Red Sea and said that Paris, in cooperation with European and non-European allies, would form a purely defensive naval mission. Ali Hassanpour, our correspondent, reporting live from Berlin, has just joined us today. Ali, European leaders are increasingly taking a very harsh and uncompromising approach against the Islamic Republic, even though some of them were previously raising significant doubts about the international legality of this recent attack.
Exactly, Fardad. Emmanuel Macron's recent visit to this country was in fact carried out within the framework of a joint mission by European countries to actively protect Cyprus against potential attacks from the Islamic Republic. I want to point out something crucial here. We know that one of the main problems in the current situation is the safe passage of commercial oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. This is a vital route where maritime traffic has now sharply decreased. The main reason for that decline is in fact the persistent and severe instability of the security situation in the region. On the other hand, insurance companies have also announced that they will not accept responsibility for compensation in case of an incident or attack on these ships. Now, Macron. It has been officially announced that France is planning to create a comprehensive defensive naval mission in close cooperation with European and crucial non-European allies, a maritime mission whose specific goal is in fact to safely accompany and securely escort commercial oil tankers and various merchant ships that pass through the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz. French President Emmanuel Macron has in fact also stated that the overall deployment of his country's naval forces operating across the Mediterranean Sea, the Red Sea, and the Strait of Hormuz will be significantly strengthened. According to him, this enhanced presence could potentially include a robust fleet of 8 warships, a massive aircraft carrier, and 2 specialized helicopter carriers, which are in fact large ships specifically designed from which helicopters take off. He has recently promised that 2 advanced warships will also be sent to join Europe's ongoing naval mission in the volatile Red Sea. Furthermore, he strongly emphasized that these maritime actions are being carried out strictly within the framework of defensive operations to protect commercial trade, which will clearly clarifies that all the current actions France and its regional allies are taking have a purely defensive nature. Additionally, we know that Germany's highly capable Nord Rhine-Westfalen warship has also now been strategically deployed in Cyprus to support these broader security efforts. At the same time, Turkey has also deployed 6 F-16 fighter jets and air defense systems in northern Cyprus, and reports indicate that Britain has also currently deployed a significant portion of its military aircraft in Cyprus. But at the same time, I want to refer to the European Union. The European Union has warned about the widespread consequences of this crisis. Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the European Commission, has stated that the people of Iran deserve freedom and the fundamental right to determine their own future. She emphasized a stark warning that escalating regional conflicts in the Middle East could inevitably spill over and spread to Europe, threatening broader security. Furthermore, she referred to Tehran's aggressive regional policies, noting that the Islamic Republic, operating through its extensive network of proxy forces, has created widespread destruction and chronic instability throughout the region. These proxy groups, as we well know, are heavily equipped with advanced missiles and lethal drones. Ultimately, von der Leyen emphasized that one should not shed tears for a regime that violently suppresses its own people. And the European Union must also act with significantly greater resolve to defend its vital strategic interests and collective security. And its broader foreign policy must also adapt to these complex new global realities. Meanwhile, widespread public concerns regarding the severe economic consequences of this ongoing war, especially the fluctuating energy prices, have also increased across the continent. This growing anxiety persists, even though the European Union Commission has officially announced that the energy supply in Europe is currently stable and that all member states maintain emergency oil reserves for 90 days. In this highly critical regard, let me also briefly say that just an hour ago, President Vladimir Putin announced that Russia is now fully ready to provide oil and gas to European countries if requested.
Thank you, Ali Hassanpour, our correspondent from Berlin, for being with us. Meanwhile, with crude oil prices increasing by over 25% in global markets and ongoing concerns about the future of this vital market, Reuters says that G7 member countries are going to review a plan for a joint release of emergency oil reserves today. Daga Katinolu, a prominent energy expert joining us from Baku, is with us. Mr. Katinolu, energy, especially crude oil, is seeing its price increasing incredibly every single moment. We've already crossed the alarming $100 a barrel threshold. The US president says that he thinks this sudden price increase will be temporary and will soon go back down. But now, tapping into these strategic reserves shows that it seems the G7 Western countries are worried that this energy crisis will be prolonged.
Yes, greetings. In fact, when we examine the current situation, the nations that make up the 7 most industrialized countries of the world, alongside a total of 32 countries that are members of the International Energy Agency, hold a substantial combined stockpile. Altogether, these allied nations currently possess roughly 1.2 billion barrels of strategic government oil reserves. To combat rising energy costs and stabilize supply, they want to officially release between 300 to 400 million barrels of that inventory. In fact, they essentially want to send 30% of these crucial government oil reserves directly to the global markets. There are two critical points to consider here. First, we must recognize that the Strait of Hormuz serves as a vital daily passage for approximately 20 million barrels of oil. This massive volume means that if emergency strategic reserves are released to stabilize the market, it can only realistically be effective as a fleeting temporary fix. Given the sheer numbers, this strategy would likely sustain global demand just for 2 to 3 weeks at most. Therefore, it serves purely as a temporary measure, not a viable permanent solution. Secondly, after a few short weeks, these nations will inevitably have to purchase and absorb the exact same amount of oil they previously released back into their strategic reserves. Meaning, if the ongoing war continues, if it lasts significantly longer than 3 weeks, the global economy will face an extreme and unprecedented energy crisis. Or worse, if Iran were to successfully strike the vital oil infrastructure of neighboring countries, the global market impact would be severe. If there remains no immediate prospect for restoring the critical volume of oil exports from the Middle East, the situation would be dire. Even if the strategic Strait of Hormuz successfully reopens to maritime traffic, we will undoubtedly, once again, witness a significant and destabilizing rise in global oil prices.
And it's not just about oil. Naturally, the Qatari LNG facilities also are completely, almost, stopped from operations. They also supply a large part of the world's energy. The rest of the Persian Gulf countries also, eventually, to deliver their energy to the rest of the world, have to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Is there really capacity right now in, like, Venezuela, in the United States, even the Russian Federation, which is facing many sanctions, to compensate for this energy gap in the Middle East, even if it's temporary?
Yes, regarding the global supply of oil, as I previously said, there's currently at least a temporary fix in place, likely through strategic reserves or brief increases from alternative producers. However, the situation is far more precarious regarding natural gas, chemical fertilizers, and essential industrial elements like sulfur. For example, consider the immense role of Qatar, which commands a massive 20% share in the world's liquefied natural gas (LNG) trade. Annually, this means that an astounding 120 billion cubic meters of Qatar's liquefied gas used to pass through the highly vulnerable Strait of Hormuz. Any disruption to this crucial maritime choke point creates severe ripple effects globally. Right now, when we closely examine the underground natural gas reserves of the European Union, the data is quite alarming. They have reached their absolute lowest level since the energy crisis of 2022, currently sitting at less than 30% full. Practically speaking, this stark reality means there is simply no viable immediate replacement for. And now, oil, petroleum products, and natural gas, as we previously discussed, hold a 20% share in the market. But when we look closely at commodities like urea, essential chemical fertilizers, and sulfur, these actually account for a significant 30 to 35% share in global trade. Since we are currently right in the middle of the crucial planting season, we are seeing that the price of these chemical fertilizers has really gone up dramatically. Furthermore, natural gas within the European Union has almost more than doubled in price.
There's a lot of concern about the fate of oil wells, because if production stops, reviving them involves a lot of complexities.
Yeah, to give you a clear instance, both Iraq and Kuwait have drastically reduced their overall oil production by a staggering 70%. If the crucial shipping lanes through the Strait of Hormuz successfully reopen, these nations can very easily and rapidly revive their oil production back to normal capacity again in just a few short days, certainly no more. For a country like Qatar, the logistical recovery process will admittedly take a bit more time, but their output too will undoubtedly be revived eventually once the bottlenecks clear. However, there is a massive underlying risk. If Iran actively targets and severely damages their vital oil extraction and refining facilities, there absolutely won't be any realistic short-term prospect for reviving their production, and so we will inevitably have to contend with chronically high prices in global markets.
Thank you. Dalga Katanoglu, energy expert from Baku, is with us. Before the program ends, let me just mention that in Turkey, in response to these missile attacks by the Islamic Republic, they have summoned the Islamic Republic's ambassador in Ankara. And with that, we come to the end of this segment of Iran International special coverage on Program 24. However, other programs in the coming hours will continue the war coverage on Iran International.